is a quorum. With that, Becky, can you call the roll, please?
Atlas Ingebretson. Chambliss. Cummings.
Here.
Ferguson. Fredson.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Sterner. Zirin.
Present.
Barber.
Present. Thank you. And with that, we do have a quorum. So I call to order the meeting of the Metropolitan Council meeting, or Transportation Committee meeting for September 14th, 2020. Before we get started with our business, there's a couple of quick things that I wanted to cover. First of all, we had some very, very exciting news today, as you're all very well aware of. We're able to execute the full funding grant agreement for Southwest LRT. It's been a very, very long process, and it's a very exciting day. I want to make sure to thank the many, many partners along the way, going back to prior administrations, to the current administration, to current and former chairs, to Hennepin County, and to the cities along the way. It's just very, very exciting to get to this point and to really see where we can realize the project through to its end. So just very, very excited for that. So yay to everybody. Huge thanks to our project staff. The project office has been working extraordinarily hard for a long period of time. And this is a big day, not only for us, this is a really big day for them. So just thank you to everybody who helped contribute to this project. The other thing I wanted to bring up, so as we all know, work and schedules and balancing things during this COVID environment can be challenging. With that, Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson and I had a discussion a little while ago of trying to balance workloads. And with that, she has decided to step back from Transportation Committee. So she has submitted a letter of resignation to Charlie, Chair Zelli, who did accept it. So I just really want to take a moment to thank her for her time and her service. She will continue to serve on some of the corridor committees and things like that affect your district. That was a big passion for her. And I think that's very important, but we are down one member, probably likely to stay this way through the end of the year. And when, so typically council's or committee membership gets revisited in January of the new year. And I think that's the plan right now, as when at least when I was talking with Chair Zelli. But I really, really do want to thank Linnea for her contributions here, and I totally understand that it's hard to balance everything in these in this day and age when you're looking at balancing things between work and council and kids at home trying to distance learn and things like that. So we've had our own adventures here this week. So, but definitely want to thank her. So, all right. So with that, we'll move on to business. So our first order of business is to adopt the agenda. If anyone have any changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing that, we can adopt the agenda without a motion. Next, we're moving on to approval of minutes, and the minutes are for the August 24th, 2020 meetings. Did anyone have any changes or addition to the minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Cummings moves approval.
Moved by Cummings. Is there a second?
Second by Gonzalez.
Second by Gonzalez. Is there any other discussion? Becky, could you call the roll, please?
Chambliss. Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson. Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Sterner. Zirin.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. And with that, the minutes are approved. Next, we're on to our TAC report. We have David Fenley here.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. David Bentley, Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee Chair. Thanks for having me this month. I regret not being able to join you a month ago. Something came up last minute, so I do apologize, but I will give you a quick update on the goings on at the TAC committee. So we've gotten quite a number of updates on situations regarding COVID and buses and LRT. and also the Network Next project that's happening with Bus Rapid Transit. We do plan on, multiple members do plan on submitting their feedback to the Network Next. In terms of things that are happening with COVID, we're quite happy with the way that Metro Mobility has adapted its services to respond to COVID still. I think I've said that to you all before, but it definitely is something that should be said again and again, because Metro Mobility staff is really doing a fantastic job. Given the drop off in ridership that has happened since COVID, there are some concerns that we have with regular route service, stuff that should only be expected given COVID, things surrounding masks, things surrounding bus capacity, which I'm happy to go into. You probably already know this stuff, but again, if you want me to go into more detail about some of the feedback that our members have, I am more than happy to. That is all that I have, and I am also happy as well to hear that the Green Line extension is full-fledged and ready to go. It's exciting.
Thank you, David. Does anyone have any questions? Just a comment, I'm glad to hear the feedback about Metro Mobility and that how we've adapted during COVID has gone well. That's really good to hear. It brings unique challenges, and we want to make sure people still have opportunities to get where they need to go. And yeah, I'm very happy to hear that.
Yep.
Great. Anybody else?
Here. Mm-hmm.
Anytime. No, it's I'm glad that we have started this. I think this was a good addition to our agenda. So thank you for being here. All right, so next we can move, if there's no questions or comments, we can move on into our other reports. We've got MTS Director Thompson.
Madam Chair and committee members, thank you for your time tonight. A couple updates. On our COVID services, we continue to have strong demand for our special services, food shelf delivery, all customers in the region on TransitLink is going well. We transitioned that in the past month. It seems to be fairly stable. We thought maybe there'd be an increase this fall, but we haven't seen an increase in that delivery, which is a good sign. And we continue to provide healthcare essential worker trips on the Metro Mobility service. And that demand continues to remain strong. And for both of those, we will continue to operate those services through the year. Because until the Metro Mobility ridership and TransitLink ridership comes back towards normal. Growth in ridership on Metro Mobility has continued to grow, but pretty slowly. Last Wednesday was the highest ridership day we've had since the COVID restrictions started in mid-March. But even at this point, we are still 60% below the level of pre-COVID or pre-pandemic levels for ridership. So it's very slowly growing. A new service that we started in August that we've got our first report on. I don't know if we've talked too much about it here at this committee, but we started a partnership with taxi providers, Transportation Plus, our taxi service for Metro Mobility called the Aware Transit Service. This is a service to provide trips for passengers who have tested positive for COVID or are showing symptoms. This is a service that we felt needed to fill a gap when they had in the spring where people were requesting Metro Mobility service, but were clearly exhibiting symptoms or tested positive. So for the safety of the drivers and other passengers on future trips, we wanted to separate out the known positive travel and still provide an option. We received a federal grant through CARES Act to contract with the taxi provider. Taxi provider has designed and outfitted vehicles for safety and also equipped and trained drivers with safety protocols and safety masks and everything necessary to protect the driver. And so that service is up and running now. Fortunately, we have not had to use it that much. We've only had 10 occurrences in the past few weeks where this service was necessary, but it still provided us a way to separate out anybody with positive COVID or symptoms of COVID from our regular service. I think that's important service that we need to, that we will continue. But it's also still provides those who have tested positive with an essential travel option for them to get to essential services, trips, or medical appointments that can be done safely. So I'm happy to report that service is going well. We are calling it the taxi aware service for that service. Last week, we had one positive test among our contracted employees for COVID. So contractors are continuing to report no issues with staffing levels, and they are able to meet service demands. And then I'll just close with mentioning that it's no surprise, but we will be not having our Metro Mobility fall convening where we meet twice a year with our Metro Mobility customers and providers. And of course, that's a meeting that has to be in person, and it's just something we cannot do this year. But we will be having an extensive newsletter to our customers coming out in early October with important updates about the service. So we still have ways that we can deal one-on-one, of course, with our customers through our customer service center. But that fall convening will be canceled this year. And hopefully we will be good enough for a spring convening next year. With that, Madam Chair, that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Thompson. Are there any questions for Director Thompson?
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, Councilmember Gonzalez.
Hi, just curious about the rights for the folks that are COVID positive. Would that be a trend, a long-term trend to our service that we might offer? I mean, it doesn't seem that COVID is gonna go away, or even if it does, that we might have, a similar pandemic of some sorts. Is that something that we're considering, just having those plans in place for dedicated rights for folks that have some particular diagnosis? Just curious.
Madam Chair, Council Member, we did enter a contract that I think continues through next year. But I think we will intend to keep this service in place as long as it's deemed necessary for the safety of the riders and the passengers that would use our vehicles. And so and we do have contracts with our taxi service normally for same-day rides at Metro Mobility. So I think it's a partnership we can continue. The federal funds that we received, we are using very little of them now so far because the ridership has not been that high. So hopefully we can continue to have those funds available to us as long as needed beyond this year. So it's clear that we're going to need it beyond this year for sure.
All right, thanks.
So I have a quick question. So then, we have this continuity of operations plan. So are we going to, you might not have the answers for this. This might go to Mary. Are we going to review that? Because this is probably the first time we've really had to use it to this extent of what else could we do. And I was just sort of curious.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that's a great question. This was not something I don't think we had in any detail in our continuity of operations plan prior to COVID. And I think this is an example of one of the many things we're learning that we will want to, when we catch a break from all the day-to-day, we will, I think, clearly look through what do we need to update, what have we learned across our system that we need to update in that plan. But that's a good point.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any additional questions for Director Thompson? All right, then on to General Manager Koistra.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to echo your thanks on the FFGA efforts. This is just a great time for us, and certainly the efforts of all the local government officials and the county officials and council members and past council members and past council chairs and regional administrators. It's a remarkable time, and we've worked long and hard for this. But I especially want to thank the efforts of our staff at the project offices, Jim Alexander and Joan Hollick and Sam O'Connell, Robin Kaufman, and many, many others at the project office have spent so much of their time on this, and not just normal work time. These are projects that require night hours, weekend hours, require individuals going through the ups and downs of the largest project in state public works project in state history. And I can't say enough about their commitment and their perseverance to this work. That's what it requires. It requires a lot of personal sacrifice. I've been able to watch it in a number of different capacities as I've worked here at the council, and I can't say enough for our staff at the project office. This is a big deal for the region, and I think our staff have earned every penny of that $929 million that is coming our way. So a big thanks to them and to others, and thank you for acknowledging that at the beginning of your comments. With respect, I've been mentioning in past reports that the quarterly service changes are now in effect. They were in effect this last Saturday. Just a reminder that these are system-wide changes that bring us up from approximately 65% to 80% of pre-COVID service. Services on our core local routes and other routes have been seen relatively less service decline. So we are providing closer to 90% to 100% of services on those routes, whereas in commuter routes and other suburban commuter routes, we've seen declines of up to 96, 97% in ridership, and they're going to be their service levels are going to be more in the neighborhood of 25 to 35%. The amount of service that we're providing on the core local routes, when I say 90 to 100, that doesn't include services that we add daily as we see ridership on those routes, and we see a need in order to gain social distancing to add buses on a day-to-day basis to those routes. Ridership for the week of August 21 to August 6 was down 67%. This has really been what we've been seeing over the last month and a half of total ridership being down 67%. Buses down 63%. Again, that varies, as I mentioned, by route. Urban local routes have been more in the neighborhood of down 50 to 55%. And again, commuter routes down 95%. The blue line is down 76%. The green line is down 92%, and North Star is down 96, 97%. Moving on to more exciting news, actually, with respect to our Excel partnership, you will see on the agenda for Wednesday's Committee of the Whole that we'll be providing an update to the council on our partnership with Excel Energy. This summer, the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission announced that they would explore opportunities for relief and recovery. And in response, regulated utilities submitted project ideas. One of Excel Energy's concepts was to propose $100 million for transit bus and school bus electrification. So we've worked closely with Excel Energy to submit a proposal that provides further detail to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, and that proposal will be submitted tomorrow on September 15th. This funding will be available to all transit agencies and school bus providers in Excel Energy's Minnesota territory, but Metro Transit's well positioned to receive this funding based on our existing pilot. Our peers in Excel's territory have not yet begun pilots. We're collaborating closely with Excel Energy to identify our own program of projects, and this program of projects represents a vision for advancing our electrification of our bus fleet. I will say if the funding does become available, if it's approved by the PUC, it could be coming at a better time for us. It will significantly mitigate the cost. It can significantly mitigate the cost gap between electric bus and diesel bus. It will also provide a stimulus to bring in the best technology. As you know, it's important that daily reliability of electric bus technology must exist for us to advance our electric bus program. So while this may not be a promise, it is a vision, and I can't say enough about how excited we are at the prospects of gaining some grants from Excel Energy and furthering that partnership over a long term that will allow us to, as we replace those buses with with electric buses. So we're really excited about this. I think there's a comment period once it's submitted through the end of October. I would not expect knowing where this Xcel Energy proposal stands or finally stands until perhaps the first of the year. But again, I'm excited about it, and you'll be getting many more details on the update at Wednesday's Committee of the Whole meeting. That's the end of my report. Madam Chair, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, General Manager. Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really a comment. General Manager Questra, it's so exciting to hear, and I'm looking forward to Wednesday's meeting to learn more about the possibility of the partnership with Xcel. It advances so many of the goals of this particular council if we are able to partner. And I think, again, much as the FFGA and so forth, it shows what partnerships can do. And when we come together, we can do so much more that benefits so many. So I'm really, really excited to hear about this partnership. And thank you for all of your work on this and the staff work that goes to establish these partnerships and keep them strong and keep them healthy so that we are in the mix. And it is exciting to hear, you know, the electrification of the fleet has not always been smooth. There are challenges, as they are with any pilot program. And yet, having weathered that, we are in a position to be able to take advantage of this next step if, in fact, we are awarded grants for this. And it's just very exciting. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Cummings. Appreciate it.
Additional questions? Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Wes. And yeah, no, that's really exciting news. You know, I think there's a few things that could be more impactful that we could do to impact, you know, vehicle emissions and the impact on climate crisis, and then in the economic situation we're in, a few things we could do to keep people working in the future. So really excited to hear this news.
Okay. Additional comments or questions from council members? All right, thank you, Wes. So now we're on to business. Our first business item is the consent agenda. We have 2 items on consent tonight. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve. Cummings.
Moved by Cummings. Is there a second?
Councilmember Fredson, I'll second.
Second by Fredson. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Becky, could you call the roll?
Cambless. Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson. Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Sterner. Zirin.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. And with that, the consent agenda is approved. Next, we're on to non-consent items. Our first item is business item 2020-237, the 2021 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. We have Joe Barbeau and Sarah Mosk.
And then Sarah will talk a bit about the public involvement aspect of this. So I'm here to talk about the 2021 through 2024 Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. That was recommended for approval by the Transportation Advisory Board at its meeting last month. You may have seen some of this presentation before, but I figure it's pretty brief, so it won't hurt too badly to see more. How do I scroll through this? Oh,
I think just let Greg know and he'll forward the slides.
All right, thanks. So briefly, and I apologize if you've seen this before, but TIP is a 4-year list of transportation projects that are funded in whole or in part with federal funding. Any MPO in the country needs to do that. Now, in the case of the Minnesota, the TIPs in Minnesota, we actually do have state-only funded projects in the TIP that MnDOT includes for us, provides for the data for us. So we're able to share that with you as well. Any project funded with transportation funds, or if they affect air quality in our remaining small air quality area, need to be in the TIP. And once once the TIP is approved by the council, it should be provided to MnDOT, who will incorporate into its statewide transportation improvement program, or the STIP. Once the STIP is completed, then FHWA and FTA will be asked to approve that. We always approve the TIP in late September at our second council meeting. It usually gets approved by the Federal Highway and Transit Administrations on about November 1st. It went a little longer last year, but I think they're back on track this year. So next. So the kind of projects you'll see in the TIP are transit projects programmed by the Metro Transit or by the council in terms of regional solicitation projects, and then other transit providers with FTA formula funds. Roadway projects that MnDOT programs with federal funds and state funds, as I mentioned. Solicitation projects, regional solicitation projects, which make up a lot of the, make up about 15% of the TIP, and take up a lot of the time with TAB, as TAB does program those more directly. And then Sherburne and there's a small piece of the MPO that goes into Sherburne and Wright counties, as well as Holton County, Wisconsin. So MnDOT provides us with the data for the projects being done in the small pieces of Sherburne and Wright County. We haven't had a project in Wisconsin for a couple of years now, since the bridge work has been done, but in theory we could. So next slide. So this is the criteria for approving the TIP, as well as when there's a TIP amendment that comes through. So the TIP itself needs to be fiscally balanced or fiscally constrained, which makes it consistent with all funding levels. It's not a wish list. It needs to be consistent with our regional transportation planning program, transportation planning program, regional transportation plan. It needs to be in conformity with all Clean Air Act requirements, and there needs to be an opportunity for public input. And all those things have occurred, and you'll certainly see the public input result later when Sarah talks to you. Next slide. So here's the schedule. Where we're at now is the red line. This is pretty much consistent with the annual schedule, particularly up through our piece on September 23rd. Usually it's in late recent years, the final federal approval has been about November 1st. Last year, I think it went to late November. I believe it's supposed to be back on track for early November this year. So next. And here's a brief summary. The TIP in total for 4 years is $4.7 billion, about half of that for highway, half of that in transit. I should say federal funds are split about halfway between highway and transit. And then you see some property and state taxes, local taxes that contribute, local matches in many cases, and then the Minnesota Trunk Highway Fund is a small portion of that. Next slide. And then we have it split here by mode colorfully. So transit and TDM is this purple piece at just under 50%, a little bit higher than the highway roads, and then small amounts for bike ped, and then others and set asides. Set asides might be, for example, a fund meant to replace signs that is used as needed and where needed. Next. So that's all I have for the presentation. Let me know if you have any questions about the TIP specifically or about process in general.
Any questions for Joe before we move on to Sarah? All right, Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you. Greg, could you bring the presentation back up? I think there are a couple more slides on there. Thank you. So just to summarize, the TIP public comment period opened on June 22nd and ran through August 10th. And this is a summary of the engagement. So people engaged on our web pages. We had 854 unique visitors. Facebook reach, we had just over 1,800. Facebook engagement, 57 users. And Twitter engagement, 35. So the stakeholders involved, we had an interesting year for the TIP. So typically we don't get any more than 10 comments, I think, in historical looking back, but we had over 200 commenters providing over 400 comments during this cycle. So some of the groups and agencies that were engaged and represented in this process, Bike MN, Fresh Energy, Metro Transit, MnDOT, Move Minnesota, St. Paul Bicycle Coalition, Sierra Club, and Washington County. So methods used for the public comment announcement, we did a web announcement and a web page notice. We used GovDelivery to email out to all of our stakeholders, Facebook and Twitter, Star Tribune classified ad as we're required to, and we had a public meeting in mid-July at the Transportation Committee, as you will recall. We received comments through email, mail, and the public meeting. So next slide, please. So the key engagement themes that we heard through the public comment period were racial equity and climate justice impacts should be included in project decisions that appear in the TIP. Expanding roadways and highways, including HOV lanes, contributes to climate change. Focus investments instead on reducing emissions and vehicle miles traveled. Prioritize investments in clean transportation solutions, including electric vehicles, transit, and active transportation. Parking has many negative effects, including reducing housing affordability, flooding, air pollution, and urban heat island effect. And we had several residents in the northeast suburbs who were either opposed to both the Rush Line itself or to the current alignment. And just to note, as I mentioned, this was kind of an unprecedented year for the TIP, and I think it's probably that we had the TIP and the TPP out for comment at the same time. A majority of those commenters that came in during the last weekend, which was over 100 commenters that came in that weekend, were the result of an advocacy campaign through the Sierra Club, North Star chapter, focusing specifically on climate change and racial justice. And those comments were applied both to the TIP and to the TPP. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. And I will just note that the public comment report and the public comments themselves are also attached to this business item if you wanted to dig in any deeper for anyone. So did anyone have any questions for Sarah? Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-234.
So moved by Gonzalez.
Moved by Gonzalez. Is there a second?
It's Councilmember Fredson, I'll second.
Seconded by Fredson. Is there any other discussion?
A point of order. Could you, this is Councilmember Zarin.
Sure.
What are we voting on here? I think you read the wrong number.
2020-237.
Okay, thank you.
If I said it wrong. Thank you for correcting me. So hearing no other discussion, Becky, could you call the roll, please?
Chambliss. Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Sterner. Zarin.
Aye.
Garber.
The motion carries. Thank you, Joe and Sarah. Next, we are on to business item 2020-210, a joint item. It is the September 2020 budget amendment, and we've got Ed and Heather here. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Once again, Chair, committee members, this is Ed Petrie. I'm Director of Finance with Metro Transit. Joining me this afternoon is Heather Augustin-Hebner.
I'm Finance Director for MTS.
And we will go through the budget amendment for both Metro Transit and then MTS. I will go through the Metro Transit portion first, answer questions, and then turn it over to Heather for her portion of the amendment. The amendment that we're bringing forth this evening is an amendment to the 2020 Unified Operating Budget. It includes both capital and changes to the operating budget. This amendment on the capital side will be bringing forward capital projects from the CIP that the council adopted back last December, now into the capital budget as funding has become available. And then Heather will also then have some adjustments to the operating side of the budget. For my portion, I will go through the Metro Transit portion first and then answer any questions. On the administrative side, we have a couple small adjustments. Just basically, it's one administrative adjustment where we're combining two projects for grant tracking purposes. It's an equal change between the revenues. It's just moving from one project to another. So it has no dollar change. On the closing reallocating projects, we have about 7 or 8 projects that we are closing the projects, and because they've reached the end of their project life, and we have about $8,248 left of RTC funds. So we're ready to close those projects out, and then we will then transfer that $8,248 back into the Metro Transit Capital Program to be allocated to other projects. The majority of my presentation this evening will be on the projects that are moving forward from the CIP to the capital budget. I'll go through some of the major projects. First of all, we have a project for the Gold Line BRT, where we are recognizing $4,975,000 in Washington County pass-through funds. This is funds that is coming from Washington County to be used for engineering and architectural services for the proposed Washington County Service Center. This was an item that was approved by the council back on June 24th of 2020. We've got the agreement done now, so now we are bringing forward the money from your approved council action item. We're bringing it into the capital budget. You'll notice on the new Minneapolis bus garage, there's a $7 million in and a $7 million out. What we had done was back last year, we had actually recognized $7 million of RTC funds for the new Minneapolis bus garage so they could begin construction activities while we were awaiting for the 2020 CMAQ grant award to be executed. That grant award has now been executed into an executed grant. So we are taking away now the $7 million of encumbrance of authority and replacing it with the actual federal dollars of CMAQ federal dollars. So this has a zero-sum change to the budget for that project, but it's recognizing the new federal grant that has come in. We have the reverse piece on the D line. We do have a 2021 CMAQ grant award on the D line that we will then be applying for the grant award in early 2021. In the interim, we are then advancing $7 million of RTC funds to the D line for their construction activities. And then next spring, once that CMAQ grant award has been executed, I'll bring it forward to the committee, bring it back to the council, and then we will then swap out the federal dollars with the RTC dollars. Other projects that are included in the council adopted CIP that are now moving forward, recommended for moving forward this evening, as the funding is now available, as we have the downtown Minneapolis Hennepin Avenue customer facility improvements, continued work on state of good repair on our LRT vehicles for corrosion mitigation. We have an 8 to 10 year project for our fare box replacements on our buses. So this is bringing in the 2020 installment for the fare box repairs. We have projects for variable message signs and technology enhancements, ADA improvements, and our HASTIS schedule software upgrade. If you recall, at the last budget amendment I brought forward, I believe it was $100,000 so they could begin some preliminary work on it. This will be bringing in the final amount for that project. The total project additions for the Metro Transit include a change to the 2020 capital budget of $8,168,902. And with that, Chair and committee members, I would answer any questions on the Metro Transit portion of the capital. On the operating side, Metro Transit has no adjustments to the operating budget at this time.
All right, thank you, Ed. Are there any questions from council members? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Heather. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, Chair, council members. Heather Augustin-Huebner, Finance Director for MTS. So now this is your second year here, really. One of the things that we do in about the fall of every year is we bring in a pretty big bus buy, and that really corresponds with when we get our federal funds in. We have our RTC bond authority issued from the state, and that's the part that we're at right now. So our capital part of the budget amendment, we propose to bring forward just over $11.6 million in new projects. This includes new bus buys for Metro Mobility, Transit Link, contracted fixed route, and suburban transit providers. We're also bringing in a federal federal grant award that was awarded to Southwest Transit through the regional solicitation. That is for expansion of service around the I-494 corridor. This amendment will also authorize $75,000 in MVEST revenues to be transferred from contract and services operating budget to the capital program, and $75,000 in federal funds to be transferred from the capital program to the contract and services operating budget. This is one of those displacing of dollar for dollar that you see us do at least a couple times a year to make sure that we have eligible dollars funding the right kind of projects. When we do a midlife bus rehab or some of the suburban transit provider projects, they're not eligible for RTC, so we just do a one-for-one swap to make sure that they can program the type of projects they need to do to support their business. On the operating side, we're also asking to increase federal funding to TransitLink operating budget by $2.47 million to replace an equal reduction in passenger fares of just shy of $500,000 and a $2 million decrease of motor vehicle sales tax. You saw us do this, ask for the same action the last time we were with you. TransitLink was a little bit behind because we were anticipating that we would get some additional federal CARES Act through MnDOT for TransitLink, and that has now happened, so we're asking to bring those funds into the budget. This budget amendment demonstrates commitment towards asset preservation and also supports the Thrive outcome of stewardship by assessing the future needs, responsible planning, and resources for Metro Transit, Metropolitan Transportation Services, and the suburban transit providers. This budget amendment adds funding for the D line and Gold line and reflects strategic investment in regional infrastructure that will promote economic competitiveness and create prosperity in the region. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may
have. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council members? All right, hearing no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-210, joint item.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Ferguson.
Yep.
Seconded by Councilmember Zarin.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Becky, could you call the roll, please?
Chambliss. Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Sterner. Zarin.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. With that, the motion carries. And we're on to our next business item. Thank you. Appreciate it. On to our next business item, 2020-217. It's a Southwest LRT civil construction change order for retaining walls. You have Jim Alexander here. Welcome, Jim, and congratulations. Oh, you're muted.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, I'm Jim Alexander, project director. Thank you for the congratulations. Very happy to receive the full funding grant agreement after a long last. And so we're still out there building, and we have a change order to talk about this afternoon. This relates to work in the BNSF railway corridor, and it's really for expanding the corridor, if you will, to accommodate LRT as we go through that area. Specifically, this is for, we're going to be extending the North Star tail tracks, so as part of an agreement we have with BNSF, and it'll be extended about 1,500 feet to the west. And to do so, we need to move some retaining walls that were already programmed in the project and some new. And this work, we did environmentally clear. Unfortunately, as we were clearing that, we were going out for bid at the same time, and so we couldn't include this information in the plan set at the time of bid, so we have to do a change order to incorporate the work. And what this action is, Madam Chair and committee members, is that the Metropolitan Council authorized the regional administrator through the Southwest Light Rail Transit Council authorized representative to negotiate and execute a change order for contract 15P307A with London McCrossin Joint Venture LMJB in an amount not to exceed $9,310,000 for retaining wall work in the BNSF rail corridor. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions from council members?
Just one, Jim, this is Councilmember first. What size of change order does it have to be for you to bring it back to this committee versus just that you guys are able to sign off on your own?
Yes, Madam Chair. Council member, it's I believe the threshold is 2.5 million. Anything over 2.5 million, we bring to this body. Okay. And maybe another note that this is within the $2.03 billion budget that we have for the project. It does not draw contingency.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions from council members? All right. If seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-217.
Cummings moves.
Moved by Cummings. Is there a second by Fredson? Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Becky, could you call the roll?
Cummings. Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Sterner. Zirin.
Aye.
Herber.
Aye. And that motion carries. So thank you, Jim. And again, very much, please, congratulations, and tell everyone of the project office how proud we are of all of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that actually concludes our business for today. So Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to add my thanks and my congratulations to Jim, to Joan Hollick, Sam O'Connell.
Molly, you froze.
It's an extended congratulations.
Yes, we'll give her a minute to come back. Anybody have any other comments while we wait for Molly to rejoin?
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Fredson.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Just for Nick and you, I did receive a communication from Ramsey County Commissioner Rafael Ortega, letting me know that they are going to be reconvening the Riverview Corridor Pact very soon. So looking forward to moving forward with work on that corridor.
Oh, good to hear. Molly, we'll bounce back to you. You froze kind of midstream for us. So.
Just that, it was on life support a number of times, and those, all of the partners who were involved in this were not going to let it die and perform CPR and kept it going. And sometimes it was very challenging. And when you think about something that's been in the works for so many decades and so many years, and the commitment that it takes for so many partners, you have elected officials who have changed, you have administrations that have changed, you have project staff that has changed. And for everybody to show the commitment to this project really underscores the value as we've all witnessed to the entire state. So it's just really exciting. And again, I am thrilled. I'm sorry that we can't celebrate in person, but that's okay. We'll just take that signature and celebrate independently and say, woo-hoo. But thank you, Jim, Joan, Sam, and the entire staff and all of Met Council and all of our partners. Hennepin County, huge as the funding partner. Could not have done it without them. So thank you to all. That's all.
Very well said. All right. Anybody have anything else? So not seeing anything. I think just what can go to on consent or not, I think that both the tip and the change order can go on consent. Obviously, the budget will go non-consent unless I see objections. All right. If not, then we can be adjourned and you can go enjoy one of our, last super nice evenings before we start to move towards more fall. So thank you all.